Hey everybody, welcome back to The Grid Live. My name is Matt Kliskowski, and I am joined today by Mr. What's your name again?
RC.
RC.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing?
We're starting the show, and I looked over. I'm like, how do I introduce you again?
What's your name again?
All right, so we'll
At least
welcome
you didn't
back.
call me Pablo. I just think it's fine. That's okay. I'm just like, you know, I have a name, right? It's okay.
He does. RC Concepcion.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing 57 people already up in the chat.
Holy crap!
It's actually shooting up. It's shooting up.
It'll be at 58 before the end of the show.
It's 62. They're going up. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, we have a very cool show for you. Before that, so let's talk a little bit. Scott is not here today.
No.
He is probably traveling between St. Louis and Kansas City, I believe.
Yeah, I think he's in Kansas City right now.
He had a seminar in St. Louis yesterday, and then tomorrow he's got a seminar in Kansas City. So he's probably somewhere between those two cities. So we are RC joined in for Scott, and we were talking yesterday. We came up with I think a really cool topic that came out of some discussions that we had.
Yes, it did.
We will jump right into it. First, let's just tell them about the prizes. We have prizes later on to give away.
Okay, so we have a couple of different prizes. What do we have for prizes? We have Canon EOS.
They're in front of you.
6D from Snapshots to Great Shots by Mr. Colby Brown. I gotta tell you, I was pretty impressed. I was looking at a, I just finished getting, yeah, that's right. So we just finished getting the Toshiba. It's like a P50T. It's one of the first. Oh, and I gotta mention this. Close up over here. You guys gotta hear about this. This thing is really cool. I'm gonna try to get it on break. It's the Toshiba laptop, right? And it's the first 4K laptop. Awesome. Awesome performance. So it's Core i7, beautiful colors, beautiful handling, all that stuff. But I don't have the deals just yet. I'm going to try to see if I can get it on break because we weren't going to really do this. But you can actually get $500 off on it. They're doing a regular NAP thing where you're getting $300, but the way that you could stack coupons or something like that, it's like $500 off. And this thing is like something like $1,500 or something like that. You can get it for like $1,000, a 4K laptop. Anyway, it's cool. Don't worry about it. I'll try to be able to figure it out. But I thought it was neat and worth doing that. But anyway, inside of that laptop, Colby Brown's picture.
Colby Brown.
That's how we get to Colby Brown. So inside of it, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this is gorgeous. Look at this picture. Look at this. Hey, wait a minute. And Matt's like, I know that signature. And it's Colby Brown licensed a couple of his pictures to Toshiba to use to sample on the 4K screen. Oh, dude. They look gorgeous, dude. Colby, they did a good job.
It looks
so
really
it looks
good.
really, really nice. Congratulations to you.
And by the way, I know it's not like rocket science. Like I said, I know that signature. Colby Brown's signature actually doesn't really say Colby Brown. It's like just imagine closing your eyes, taking your pen, and giving it to a 2-year-old. That's what Colby Brown's signature is.
Wow.
Sorry, Colby. I don't mean that in a bad way because it's a great photo. But
I don't mean that in a bad way. That sounds pretty freaking bad.
It's his signature. Come on. Mine doesn't look very good either. But anyway, it's a great photo.
But anyway, and he's got a book. So, and then we have 3D Photoshop Imagine Model created by Steve Kaplan.
Cool. So, all right. So the topic for today
is
it's
gear.
Not all about gear until it's about the gear. So we were kind of talking about this yesterday. It came up from a couple of different ways because we were talking about. I'd gotten a message about sports photography based on last week's show, something that I had said, where we were talking. We had Peter Reed Miller on, and they were talking about the gear, and I said. Something to the effect of, sports photography is one of those places where gear matters. So you hear so many times that gear doesn't matter. Sports photography, it's one of those places where gear matters. You need the absolute highest ISO that you can push your camera. I don't say you're going to push it as high as you can, but you need the high ISO performance of a lot of the camera bodies. Mm-hmm. You need the high frames per second of a lot of the high-end camera bodies. You need as shallow depth of field as you can get that you get from the long telephoto lenses, f2.8, f4, but you need those things in sports photography. And somebody had said, I guess they just replied they hadn't heard it put that way because they were talking about a lot of different types of photography. So we kind of just started talking and we realized there's a show about gear. Right. So before we jump into it, one of the things is it requires your feedback on this because we want to answer your questions. It's kind of like ask us anything you want about gear. So # The Grid Live. You can get on Twitter. You can ask it. We have Pete back there. He's going to grab your questions and comments. But ask us questions. That's why we're here for today. Just one thing. It's not a troubleshooting show. Okay, so I turn on my camera and I get the
blinking warning that says that I need to be able to recover function menu set. No.
Error 102755X3.
Nope, not that kind.
It's not a troubleshooting day, so don't ask us troubleshooting questions, but you just have gear questions. You want to buy something, you're thinking of buying something, you want to sell something, you just want to know about something, ask it in.
Swap meet. It's like, something,
and we posted it earlier today. We have a ton of stuff already. So
see,
what were you going to say?
I was just saying that I was excited about it because it was just one of those things where I get very, I seem very calm on the surface here. Like whenever I'm just talking about stuff, I'm like, well, it depends on stuff. And then afterwards, I'm like, I'm generally like just one of those like kind of persons. And one of the things that I get really it gets in my craw is one of those things where people talk about, the best camera is the one that you have with you. It's like, well, the best camera is the one that you have with you. And I'm like, you know what? That actually is not true. It's like, it should say, yay, good for you, you have a camera. Mm-hmm. But it isn't the best camera, the one that you carry with you. Because if you're shooting dance from 4 rows back and the best camera that you have with you is your iPhone, guess what? You just missed a whole bunch of pictures.
Yeah. You almost might as well just watch the dance.
Just watch it. Just put the phone down, put it in your pocket and watch it. It is not the best camera that you have with you. It is the best camera is the one that you have with you, so long as that camera is the camera that's geared towards doing something very specific. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I wish that and YOLO would go away. It's just, you gotta be kidding me. So anyway, I'll let you continue.
He said it. All right. So I think one of the places we were going to start was just to kind of go through some of the different areas of photography.
Yes.
And I don't. What we don't want to do today is say you need this gear list. But where I thought we could help was just to kind of say, this is where a camera body's important. This is where a lens is important. This is where a tripod's important. Mm-hmm. Like, if you've got money to spend, where would your best bang for the buck be?
Right.
As we do that, we're already getting a ton of questions up here. But as we do that, we'll drop in and answer some of your questions. And then I've got probably a list of 30 questions on here that we're just going to blow through at the end too. So I'll start with the portraits. So you're getting into portrait photography. Camera body. I would say I'm probably not going to buy the highest end camera body for just portraits. And I know this is, it could go as big as you want, for interior portraits, outside, whatever. I'm probably not going to buy the best camera body, the most expensive camera body I can for high ISO and frames per second. But I'll probably want a full frame camera body, where if portraits, I would spend my money more on lenses, because what takes a portrait from a casual portrait to that next level, shallow depth of field, that comes from some of those
lenses.
The lenses. So it's not necessarily the camera body that's going to get you there. It's going to be the lenses.
I'd agree 100%. It's one of those things where, and specific lenses, I think at that. A lot of the times, people tend to think of portrait work as a specific thing. A lot of the times people think, well, what you want for shallow portraiture is 1.4. Oh, you hear a lot of 1.4. Sometimes you hear 1.2. But it's not just that. Like, you have to have a specific focal length when you're working with most of that stuff. Yeah. And more often than not, even if it were like APS-C, even if you were dealing with a crop sensor, even if you were dealing with a mirrorless, you really kind of need to get into a specific millimeter and a specific depth of field in order to be able to take, I think, an effective portrait for that. So you can save a lot of money. If you know that you're just going straight into portraiture work, you can save yourself a lot of money by not necessarily choosing something that, not choosing a big camera, and then just focusing on.
You're right. I said full frame, but you're right. I don't even think that's
I'd shoot a Rebel.
Of a deal. Yeah.
I'd shoot a Rebel
as long as you had the right lens. If you had the right lens, nobody would know the difference.
Right. And I think that's where the focus on that is.
So where your camera bodies are going to start to get better is high ISO performance, but if you're shooting portraits, you're probably not going to need that. You're not going to be shooting at 12,000 ISO. You're not going to be in those situations where you need that high ISO or the frames per second where you have to freeze the action. Chances are you're going to want a really good lens. And I think one of the ways, because you and I kind of both agree on this. Number one, you always hear the 85, 1.2, 1.4 as like that's the portrait lens that's thrown out there. So There's an 85 1.8 that's like a third of the cost of the 1.2 or 1.4. Let me tell you, it's still so shallow, no one's going to know the difference. Okay? So save yourself some money right there.
Difference.
Yeah.
Few will know the
difference. Very few.
And so I just finished saying that I can't stand the 1.2, the 85 1.2. That's not to say that I don't like it. It's just to say that I can't stand it. What do I mean by that? It's a beautiful lens, no doubt. It's a great lens to be able to work with. But I think that one of the biggest problems that people run into with something like a 1.2 is like, I want that kind of shallow depth of field when you're shooting. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people go out and shoot shallow. That bokeh is just going to look really, really nice. And what happens? It's bokeh.
No, it's bokeh.
It's bokeh. So then they turn around and they shoot a picture like this, right? So we're looking at this camera, and then all of a sudden they do this. And they just tilt ever so slightly. I'm going to try to do it like this, right? Because the close-up camera isn't coming up.
So one eye is a little more forward than the other one. So they put it one behind than the other, right? So I'm just tipping my head just a little. Instead of doing this, they're doing this. And what will happen is they nail it on one eye, and at 1.2, the other eye is out of focus. Yep.
And then they look at their picture, and once it's printed, they're like, what happened?
Yeah. Why is it blurry?
Like, surprise, it's 1.2. That's what you do. So you have to be really good about work. It's a lens that requires quite a bit of work when you're working with it.
I agree.
Where I think that is it good? It's great. I still think you need to be able to get it. However, if you were to spend that money on, let's say, like a 70 to 200 2.8, I usually tell people that more often than not, you can get, you show somebody like a 70 to 200 2.8, and you show somebody an 85 1.4, and side by side, people will be like, "Oh, well, I like what you did here." It's like, surprise.
That's a 70 to 200.
That's a 70
to
200.
Dude, I've had it happen. That's all I shoot portraits with is my 70 to 200, and people will look at it and it's like, "Oh, that's the 85 1.4, is it?" Nope, 70 to 200. Rack it out at 200 millimeters, f2.8, and it's a beautiful.
Okay, now that said, you will have people that will, the measure baiter will look at the lens and go, oh, obviously, if you look at the
but they're not watching. We don't care about the measure baiter.
Measure baiter is not here.
Okay.
So.
And then I kind of put this down there. I don't know if you agree. Tripods, filters, things like that for portraits. You might need a tripod once in a while, but most portrait photographers I know are not on a tripod. Maybe in the studio once in a while, but just about everybody I know is not shooting off of a tripod. So,
right, no, with the amount of money that you save yourself for not necessarily getting a high-end camera, you can get yourself a pretty decent tripod.
Yeah.
So you could do it.
Okay. Landscapes. So landscape photography. You know what you don't need? High ISO performance.
Nope.
Because you're always going to be on a tripod. You're always going to be on a tripod, so you're not going to have to get your shutter speed down. So you might have to get it down a little bit, but nothing more than 800, 1600. That just about any camera out there will do just fine. So you don't need one of the super high end bodies. Lenses. f2.8, f1.4, f1. You're never going to be shooting at those apertures. With landscapes, you're going to be shooting at f11, f16, f22. So buying those lenses that shoot at 2.8, you're never really going to be using it. So, you know where I would spend my money though? Tripod. So
a good tripod.
A good, sturdy, and lightweight tripod. And it's kind of like an oxymoron, but a lot of the technology that you're paying for in an expensive tripod are things that make it light, but have dampening and vibration dampening throughout the tripod to help cut that down. So that starts to get the cost of those tripods up a little bit higher. So I would pay for a good tripod. You don't want to be out there and the wind's blowing and you've got all these blurry photos because you're on one of those little twig tripods.
And that's a key point. I think that a lot of the times that people don't think about when they think about tripods. Like, for example, I happen to be a big fan of really right stuff. So a lot of the times I'm using it. It's expensive.
It's really expensive.
It's really expensive stuff, but it's stuff that anybody that's out there that's doing great photography work, this is what they're using. Now, this tripod is humongous. I tend to use their travel tripod, so I don't own this one yet. Full disclaimer, I will, but I don't own this one yet. And a lot of times people equate these tripods with, well, it's so big, I'm never going to get that high. I'm never going to be able to do anything. And I'm like, you don't buy these things to be able to get really high all the time. You buy them because they're big and bulky and they can take wind. When you're shooting in landscape environments, what you want is to eliminate any kind of vibration. So having a smaller tripod or having a flimsier tripod doesn't help you. You need something that's going to lock down and that camera's not moving. Big tripods is where it's at.
And then the other one I would say are filters. You know, don't cheap out and buy the cheap, you know, resin filters or anything like that. But landscape is where you're going to want filters. You're going to want neutral density filters. You're going to want polarizing filters. I think Stingray is a great brand. Tiffin is a great brand. B&W, it's B+W, but we say B&W. Those are great brands. Probably going to cost you a little bit more, but I bought a B&W polarizing filter like 9 years ago, and I still have it today. It's still the polarizer that I use today.
Somebody just finished asking, Lonnie, Utah, does RC have to hike with that thing? That's the thing. Dude, I bring my tripod everywhere. Whenever I carry my tripods, I carry it everywhere. And what happens is, it's dumb, just a dumb thing. Usually take your backpack, take one of the legs of the tripods, I'm going to try to see if I can find it on a break, and just literally dangle it behind the strap of your backpack. You carry it everywhere you go. If you buy a tripod that is not light enough to be able to do it, you won't carry it. That's what you're paying for. You're not paying for it because it's carbon fiber and it's cool. You're paying for being able to carry it and not curse at it. Sorry.
Exactly.
Go right ahead.
No, I agree. And it's one of those, you don't want to get out there and it's windy and you spend all this time and money getting to a gorgeous place and you get there and it's windy and you can't get a sharp photo. I've been there. And it sucks. So, all right, let's see. Let's start taking some questions here. Let's see. Lindsay Adler, Lee Calkins says, Lindsay Adler uses nothing but Sigma lenses. Do you ever use third-party lenses? Absolutely. I have a Tamron 24-70. I have put my Tamron 24-70 up against other larger name 24-70 lenses, and I will tell you this, I've zoomed into 100% on the photos. I can't tell one bit of difference.
You know where you can tell the difference, though, on one of those things?
Yes.
Focusing.
Yes.
You can have the two side by side, you cannot tell, but you will notice sometimes on camera, and look, they know it, right? You put it together, you will hear zzz, zzz, zzz. You put it on a Canon, you put it on a Nikon, it's like, done. So what I would say is, for what I shoot, that works fine. Because I'm not time sensitive. It's like, you know, I put my camera down on a tripod and I focus on what I need to focus, it's going to focus. But if you're shooting people, if you're shooting a lot of things that are moving around, that's something to maybe think about there. Right. And mountain's not moving.
No.
So you're okay.
But Sigma, Tamron, I mean, they make great stuff. Let's see. I would like Matt and RC's opinion on older long glass. I have an old 300 2.8 and like it. What about the 400 2.8 units without VR?
You know what? I have a couple of older lenses that I tend to use that I think are pretty good. To be honest with you, it's the lens that you have. I think that the upgrades that you have for most of that stuff and vibration reduction, but if you're doing like low light portrait stuff, then maybe you might want to consider it. But if you're out doing landscape and stuff, you're going to be turning VR off anyway, so it doesn't really much matter.
And dude, I can't imagine a 400 millimeter lens that you're hand holding. With VR, you know, most of the time you're going to be on a monopod or something. But
now that said, there's only one time that I've ever seen somebody hold a 400. Actually, probably it could have been even longer. But
the Moose?
No. Dude, I was in New York. I was in New York. I was hanging out, and the day before Photo Plus, Joe calls me up and he's like, "Are you here?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Do you have a sweater?" And I'm like, "Why?" And he takes us up in a helicopter.
Oh.
And so we're flying around New York, and he literally, you could grab a softball and hit the Statue of Liberty, how close he got. And he tipped us sideways. And the doors open, and we're like sideways banking on the Statue of Liberty. And I'm like fearing for my life. And I swear, Joe's sitting. I don't think he was strapped in at all. But he literally was sitting. He was kneeling with one knee up like this with a 400 shooting the Statue of Liberty. And he kind of like looks over and is like, ha! He was crazy.
That's funny.
Anyway. That's it.
So, and you know what? I should say I don't see anybody shooting, but you will see on the sidelines of some of the sports games now. You'll see, and I say this with all due respect, you see a lot of the younger photographers that will handhold a 400. So
you know why? Guns.
All right, hey, I saw Matthew Henry. He asked, can you guys recommend non-R really right stuff tripods, non-really expensive tripods? I will say Vanguard makes a great tripod.
Make a good tripod.
I own a Vanguard tripod. I love it. It's a great tripod. They make great backpacks too. But Vanguard makes
Manfrotto's got some pretty good tripods. MePhoto's got some really good tripods.
MePhoto makes a nice. They make a nice little compact travel tripod. I think.
I tell people on opposite ends.
Oben
is a good tripod. I tell people on opposite ends. I've got a small travel MePhoto that I've been using, and I've got a really right stuff that I use, and that's the one that I travel with all the time. But I do use that, and I do have a Benro, and Benros have actually been pretty good.
Yeah.
So they're okay. They're not bad. But
I have a Vanguard, so I like my really right stuff a lot, but I also use my Vanguard often too, and it's a great tripod. All right, let's see.
I got to do this. Last tripod. The reason, and so like we just finished saying, well, I use really right stuff, but then I use this, and then I use this, and then I use this. Somebody's going to go, well, all right, so then which one do you use? They're all cool. The only reason that I use really right stuff on this one instance is because that was the only tripod that I could fit in a rollerboard straight down without putting the head off, without taking anything apart. So that's the one that goes with me on my carry because I do a lot of just carry-on stuff. It's the one that I can just stick right at the bottom and pack all my stuff on it. That's why I've used that
Makes sense. All right, we're going to have to blow. Dude, we got a lot of questions.
You're fine. You're okay.
What do you think about Sony cameras? I think they're great. I shot the Sony A7R when I was out in Mount Rainier the other week. Great camera. Loved it. If I would say anything, some of the features, it's got some really cool feature, focus peaking and some different things like that. I mean, it's like you're going to find features in one that you don't. I love their wireless feature where you can wirelessly transmit to your phone. But then, like when I wanted to change focus points, I found myself just taking a little bit longer to do that than I would on my Canon or Nikon.
Now I don't know about the A7S, but one of the things that I saw was on bracketing. Like, I know that when I was using older cameras, you can only bracket like 0.3 or 0.7, and then after that you can do anything else. I don't know if it was the case.
You can do more. You can do more now.
All right, so that was fine.
But you can't bracket and use like timer mode, which I use a lot. Like I set it up to bracket, and then I just hit my camera and hit timer mode, and the camera does the whole thing. And
but image quality is cool.
But image quality is great. They're great cameras, and I can't say anything. I mean, they're just really good cameras.
Yeah, cool.
Let's see. Is a 51.4 worth the extra money? No. They make a 51.8, don't they? Do they make a 1.8? Yeah.
They do make a 1.8. I don't like the 50 millimeter. I don't like the 50 millimeter frame all that much anyway. Like I'm a big like 35. Like I'd rather go for a 35 1/8 than a 51.4. Yeah.
So, and that's from Justin Tobias. What I would say is, I think we can jump to wedding really quick. If we were a wedding photographer, what would we spend our money on? Do you know where those lenses come in? Is the 1.2 and the 1.4. If you're in a church and you're standing back, you don't want to take your 50 and get right up in somebody's face because RC did a test on that and it doesn't look good. But if you're standing back and you're in a church, then having a 1.2 or a 1.4 in low light conditions, that's going to help. All right, so that's one of the places. If you're a wedding photographer and you're photographing in low light environments, those lenses can help there.
But you're not using it for depth of field.
You're not. No. A higher ISO camera, again, wedding events. If you're inside and there's not a lot of light, that's where your high ISO is going to come in handy. You're going to need to freeze what's going on, and so as a wedding photographer, I would say you probably do want to invest in something that's a little bit beefier on the ISO performance. Not necessarily frames per second. You don't need like the sports shooter's camera, but you need something that's going to let you get up there in the ISO, 800, 1600, 32, something.
And most cameras right now in the average range. So if you look at, let's say like D700, D7100, maybe not, but in the D700, let's say 5D Mark II side, most of those cameras are doing pretty good at 1600. They tend to do okay, so you're totally fine on that. We got to take a break though.
We got to take a break.
So
send in your questions.
More questions. The chat's live. There's tons of people that are asking a bunch of different things. We'd love to be able to answer it here on the grid. We'll be right back.
Pro, the full-service online photography lab, helping you grow your business with pro-quality photo products and stellar services. Get started at mpixpro.com.
Hey everybody, we are back live on the grid. Matt Kloskowski here, and I'm joined by RC Concepcion. We're taking camera gear questions. It's the Camera Gear Show, where we're just talking about everything camera and gear. We kind of opened up the show and we said it's not all about gear until it's about the gear.
Then it's all about the gear.
So, all right, RC, let's just take one here.
Scott King has got a question. I've been using a T3i and it's on its last legs. My paying gigs are board game photography. Board game photography? Cool. Mm-hmm. But I also love shooting food and landscapes. Do I stick with a crop sensor or go full frame? FYI, not interested in a micro. I'm assuming he means like a mirrorless or a micro four thirds or something like that. To be honest with you, these days, full frame and APS-C, I think you're beginning to notice less and less of a difference in terms of quality between the two. Mm-hmm. Zach Arias made a great blog post where he talked about the differences between a full frame and APS-C and really went into some finer points on it. But I would say that by and large, and I know that this is something that a lot of people aren't going to necessarily agree with or appreciate hearing at this time, but APS-C has made some big leaps and bounds. They've made some great leaps and bounds in image quality, in processing, even in ISO performance. Mm-hmm. You're beginning to see the APS-C sensors really, really catching up. So I would certainly take a look at that stuff. You would be very impressed with what you see out there now. Yeah,
if that's what you're invested in lenses and whatnot, then
absolutely.
If you don't have a reason to go, I'd keep what you have. Let's see, is that so? But if you're using a fast lens for light rather than depth of field, how does that depth of field affect the outcome of the photo?
You'll start seeing a little bit of softness in some areas, I think.
Yeah, what you focus on will be sharper than what you didn't focus on.
Yeah,
the further back you are, the wider you are, the less you'll notice it. So
I would dare say that when you shoot something at 1.4, you would be hard pressed to try to get everything that's completely tack. You're not going to get tack everywhere.
But if you were a wedding photographer, maybe going up into the choir mm-hmm. and shooting down on the entire thing with mm-hmm. a 50 millimeter lens, everything's probably going to be equally in focus.
Equally in focus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see.
I'd like tripod recommendations.
I think we kind of already talked about
local
that.
Camera, Manfrotto tripod head. Any Manfrotto brands to seek out? Manfrotto's a pretty good one. I think you're going to be fine. I would take a look at things like MePhoto and Oben and Benro, and then if you have the money, really red stuff.
And because you said you're a landscape shooter, so I can help you there. If I can give you a personal recommendation, the less legs, the better. So not the less legs.
Just one. Just leg.
Go for one.
One leg.
One legged tripod, you'll be okay.
Just a spike, really. Just throw it in the ground and you'll be fine.
Auger. No, the less leg sections, the better. So if you're not trying to fit this into a laptop bag that you're going to be bringing onto a plane because you can't check your bags, you don't have to worry about compacting into these little leg sections. So I prefer less leg sections because it's less to open. You set up somewhere and it's like you crank one thing, crank the other, open. The more leg sections that you have, that's one more knob, 2, 3, 4 that you have to open on each leg. So just a personal preference there. I'll let you take the next one.
Regarding softboxes, if I could only buy one softbox, is bigger better by Monica? Yeah, I think so, because I think that when you use a bigger softbox, you can actually play with it a little bit more. You can feather it out. So you'll get much greater control. You'll get a greater control. When you're looking at a softbox, you're looking for something that's very soft and buttery. So you're going to, the bigger it gets, the more buttery it's going to get, right? The more soft it's going to get. So buying one of those and then just using one side of it, right? So if you have this whole softbox right here in front of you, and you have a person, well, you might not necessarily want to sit them directly in front of the softbox, but you could kind of cheat the softbox forward, cheat the softbox back, and get a little bit of fall off, and that will kind of fill in some other sections. I think you can find some stuff there. There's a lot more tricks that you can do to play around with that stuff.
Plus, the more people, it gives you a little bit of leeway. The more people you add, now you have a softbox that can cover it.
Right.
All right, let's see. Johan says, I do a lot of portrait shooting on a white background at f11 or f16. Why do I need a 1.8 or a 1.4? You do not.
Don't. You don't even worry about it. And that's a pet peeve of mine. A lot of the time people are like, I buy a 51.4. What'd you shoot that at? I shot that at 5.6.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so what'd you buy a 1.4 for?
Why? Yeah, don't buy a 1.4 or 1.8, 1.2 if you're not going to shoot it at that. You don't always have to shoot it at that, but that's the idea. That's kind of the idea behind it. That's why you paid the extra money for it. I'm not sure what that question is, so we'll skip it. Would you guys recommend extenders? I have a 70-200 f2.8 and was thinking about getting the 100-400. If I get an extender, it will be 80% cheaper. So,
right, and I think that's what they're talking about from 1.4 to 2x.
Okay.
I think they're talking about teles, about teleextenders. So
go ahead.
You're gonna lose probably another stop.
A stop or two. The 1.4 is one stop. The 2 is.
Right.
The 2 is 2 stop.
You do also lose autofocus.
Depending on your camera.
Right.
Yeah. What I would say to that is it depends what you're shooting. If you're shooting sports, you're going to miss that stop. That extra stop or two, you're going to, and autofocus, of course. If you're shooting sports, you're going to miss that. If you're shooting wildlife, you're going to miss that extra stop or two. If you're shooting travel, landscape, anything like that, you're not going to miss that extra stop or two because you're probably not going to be ever shooting it at f2.8 or f4 or anything like that. So I personally would take my 70-200, and it was what I do. I take my 70-200 with me and a 1.4 extender, and that's what I use to get me out rather than taking a bigger lens.
Or get a second body that's a crop sensor.
Yeah, or Pete's adding, or get a second body that's a crop sensor. So Rob Feiner asks, what situations would you guys use a mirrorless camera instead of a DSLR? By Rob Feiner. Had you asked me this 6 months ago, I would have told you that I would have never used a mirrorless camera.
Yeah, you're a good person to answer this.
Yeah, I had you asked me this, I'd say about 7-8 months ago. You'd say I would have like mirrorless cameras they're just not good. They're not there yet. That said, I have done some different change. I have done a change of opinion on this. I would use a mirrorless camera in a lot of street shooting scenarios, day-to-day walking around scenarios, even some portraiture scenarios. I think it's done fine. It's done okay.
Yeah.
The cameras have even caught up in terms of durability and things like that. Like recently I did some stuff with the Fuji, with the X-T1. I've used it in portrait scenarios. I've used it in, I'm gonna pull something up now so that we can kind of see it. I've used it in portrait scenarios. I've used it out in the pouring rain. I've used it in dust scenarios, right? So I was in Dubai when I started working with it. It's the quality of it has been really, really cool. I was very impressed with it. The only time, and I don't know why I wouldn't do this yet, but the only time that I think that I still switched to the DSLR, and I had this problem with me, was a couple of weeks after I shot all of these things, I went into some caverns and I was shooting dark stuff or low light stuff or things where I think focus is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden I was just like, wait, where's my Nikon? Where's my Canon? Where's my, like I went back to the 5D Mark II. Went back to the 5D Mark III. But take a look at this one picture. I do want to show you this, right? So we were talking about quality. So these are a set of portraits that I did with the Fuji X-T1, and this speaks specifically to mirrorless. So this is an APS-C. This was shot JPEG only. This picture, take a look at the quality of that. Had you asked me 6 months ago whether or not a mirrorless camera would be in the game, this picture would prove these guys are on it. I mean, take a look at this right here.
Yeah.
They have amazing detail. He probably doesn't want me to show that, but they have amazing detail on most of this kind of stuff. Now, the camera, I'm still having a hard time feeling that I can beat it. My D3S, I can throw. I've thrown it on floors. I've had it covered in dust. Canons, I've thrown them all over the place. The cameras take a beating. So when you buy a DSLR, you're looking for that kind of stuff. I'm looking for something that's going to bang around and take a beating and survive that. I'm also looking for faster focus. I'm looking for more lens options. And in that, when I'm doing jobs like that, I think that I have to go with a DSLR. That's why the DSLR is for me, but the mirrorless camera is really coming up on that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's see here. Matt, which wide zoom do you recommend for landscapes instead of the Nikon 14 to 24? I would, so the wide lens that I used to use was the 16 to 35. I got rid of my 14 to 24 because I never shot it that wide, and it's such a big lens. So the 16 to 35 is a great wide lens for landscapes. Nikon also has an 18 to 35. It's less money. It's like half of the weight of the 16 to 35. So it's cheaper, it's half the weight, and it's every bit as good as the 16 to 35. So on the Nikon side, I'd use the 18 to 35. On the Canon side, I don't think they have an equivalent, so I'd go with the 16. 16 to 35. All right, I got a whole list of them here too.
Okay.
Let's see. How about what gear? So this one's from Alan Flores. What gear is essential for traveling abroad? And he says, I have to put my camera, tons of memory cards, tripod, need lightweight, but don't know what. 10 to 22, 24 to 70, anything else I should be packing. If I were Alan, I don't know that I'd pack a 10 to 22 and a 24 to 70 and all that if I was traveling, and I wanted to keep it really light. I'd get one of those 18 to 200s or 28 to 300 or something along those lines that goes from wide all the way to 200 or 300 millimeters.
Okay, yeah,
One lens, because you don't want to change lenses all those different times and carry them all with you. So I'd keep it simple. When I travel, that's pretty much what I take with me is a 28 to 300.
All right. Now, can I do one over here?
Sure.
Because I thought it was kind of cool. What do you guys think about cheap speed lights like Yongnuo?
Oh, I got some questions on those too.
Oh, all right. So I would just say, generally, cheap speed lights are cheap. I don't think I've had problems with Yongnuos where I've had to sync them. I tried to get them to work with CLS. A lot of the times, these flashes that happen here tend to fit kind of like the DIY Zach Arias. Hey, they're disposable. We could throw them away. We could do this kind of stuff. If it doesn't work, hey, it's $60. Here's the problem with that. When they don't work, they don't work. So what'll happen is you buy them, you get the $60. You're like, hey, it's $60. I'm gonna go take it on a job. You go out on a job, and then it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't matter whether or not it costs you $60 or not when you're at that job.
Yeah.
So at that job, it doesn't work. So it's disposable, but it's not disposable when you actually need it. Yeah. That's why you pay the money that you do. So when you're looking at things like Canon has got great flashes, Nikon has got great flashes. You go to something like a Photix. Photix is a pretty good flash, right? Not as expensive as a Canon, works as a transceiver. You can shoot, transmit, and receive at the same time. You got a good build quality. A lot of the times people are like, well, smaller flashes are cheap. And I'm like, well, they're cheap for a reason. Yeah. They're going to give out somewhere. And it doesn't matter if you can replace it over and over. It's, can you afford to miss it
yeah.
when you need it?
So if you're going to buy it, buy like 6.
Yeah.
So you have backups with you.
So,
all right, let's see here. What's the best travel bag for a photo trip to Cuba? I'm a woman, so I would like something not too bulky heavy. Thinking the Think Tank Streetwalker backpack would be a good choice.
Yeah. Think Tank Streetwalker would be pretty good. I would probably also say take a look at the Retrospective. It's pretty good. Retrospective has a nice, it hugs a little bit closer, so I think that has to be pretty good. I like the Retrospective too because it's also jet black, so it's solid. It doesn't really call out that I'm a big, I'm a big camera and go out and take a look at that stuff. So I would look at that.
Okay. Let's see here. So, I mean, lots of questions about travel tripods.
Tripods are very important.
It is. It's such a. I mean, MePhoto.
I think MePhoto's a great tripod. I think Benro's a good tripod. I think Manfrotto's got a great tripod. A lot of the times it has to do with features and weight. That's really all you point down to: features, weight, and durability.
Yeah. If you're talking travel, that means you want light. So it's how much money, because so a travel tripod They all hold your camera steady to an extent. So at that point, it's about weight. How much money are you willing to spend
and durability
to get light? Yeah,
and durability. And this is one of those things where I was not asked to do it. Again, it sounds like it's going to sound like I'm wearing the headband for really right stuff, but this was one of those things because people would always ask. They were just like, all right, well, you have this tripod. Like, why did you buy it? And I got it, and I was just like, you know what? Really what you're paying for is the durability. So I took that tripod. I've had it in salt water. I've had it in pool water. I've had it in sand. I've had it in snow. I've had it in breezes. And even the really right stuff guys have sent us an email and gone, hey, do you guys need us to service your tripod and do anything? And I told them, no. I was like, don't. I was like, because I bought it because I'm going to kick the snot out of this tripod. When this breaks, then I'll look into replacing it. But until then, I want to be able to see if I'm going to tell somebody I'm carrying this tripod and it's really expensive because it's light and it's durable. I can't do that if I'm not kicking the snot out of it. So for me, that's kind of been a soft experiment where I've done and I've put it in all these different scenarios. I can at least then comfortably tell you, you know what? I got one. I took it out. I've put it through all of these things. Yeah. That's why I spent the money for that. So other tripods may do that. You have to go out and look at that, and you're only going to be able to do that with weight being the first thing. You have to carry it to where you're going to go.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. I saw one. This one's by Dottie X or something. Which one is better for color correction? X-Rite Passport Color Checker or Data Color Spider Checker? So color correction on your computer. What I would say is get a color calibration device. I think they're all of good quality. I personally use the Spider ones from Datacolor.
I use Datacolor Spiders too.
X-Rites are just as good. It's just they're all good. You're gonna want to get one. Just get one. They're all good. Whichever one happens to be available that fits into your price range, but they're all good. I haven't seen any differences.
Tell you, I will say, and this is just anecdotal, so it's for me, what I've said is I've used Datacolor, I've used Color Monkeys, I've used a bunch of different ones. Bang for buck, I think that the process that Datacolor has tends to be a little bit easier for me. Sometimes I think that working with the different doohickeys and the light meters and all these kinds of things, I think sometimes it gets over technical for me.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm just like, I like the fact that their process is very bam, 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 you're done.
Yeah. Well, one of the places I think we can save people money is a lot of calibration systems come with a print calibration device where you can, some of them do, some of them don't. The ones that do cost more money. So basically what it does is you'll take a piece of paper and print out a color chart on it with your printer. Then you'll take the calibration device and you'll run it over that color checker and it'll build profiles for you. What I would say is you don't need that if you're printing on a brand name printer with brand name papers. So you're printing on an Epson or a Canon printer and you've got Red River, Epson, Moab. If you're printing with any of the name papers out there, they already come with profiles and they already have all that stuff, so that this whole step of you doing it yourself, you don't need to. So save your money. Don't buy a print calibration and a monitor calibration device together.
Right.
Okay, let's see here.
I'm looking for something for a question here because somebody just said something here. Who was it? Marlon. Travel tripods. Another perspective is lugging them attached to the backpack, maneuvering through tight, compact spaces, subways, crowded streets. My Manfrotto is light, but it dangles and makes contacts with bypassers. Looking for the perfect combo of compactness and stability. I've got a picture that I want to show you. I just have to find that picture. It's basically tripod backpack. As soon as I find it, I'll show it because I think that this will solve a lot of. Oh, here it is. Never mind. Found it. Travel tripod. Okay, so take a look at this right here. This is the tripod that I had, and this is 2 years old. So this is the travel tripod that I have, and this is the only way that I can actually explain it.
Is this while you were being arrested?
Yes, this is when I was being arrested. So there's the tripod. See that? You just grab the tripod, grab the leg of the tripod, and that leg of the tripod goes into the bottom of that backpack. And now look. There it is. Now, when I walk around with it, that's where it sits. I can't stand, like anytime any bag manufacturer has like a little hook and cup and things like that where you could store your tripod and you look like a giant antennas coming out of the back and you're walking around like beep, boop, beep, boop, boop, like you're, look at me, I'm a photographer with a tripod on my head. I think it looks dumb.
Yeah.
I think you just look like a big nerd. So a lot of the times I tell people just grab the tripod, put it on the side, dangle your arm over it. People are like, well, how'd you get that tripod into that location to do an HDR shot? I'm like, you know what? I didn't hide it. It was like right there.
Yeah.
I just walked in with it. So there's my tripod thing.
All right. Let's see. Is it inevitable to get the 70-200 f2.8 IS, or can I get away with the 85 1.8 or 70-200 f4? No IS for indoor with the f4, which doesn't have IS for indoor event photography or outdoor portraits. Indoor event photography, you're going to want as fast of a lens as
2.8.
Yeah, 2.8. So the 85 2.8, you're not going to, if you don't have 85 versus 200, if you're indoor events, and you're not going to be able to get as close to whatever you want to get to. So that's going to be a sacrifice there.
Oh, and this is going to turn into the giant tripod episode. I'm sorry, guys. Tony Drum just said, I bought a Me Photo tabletop tripod. Forget what they call it. At Photoshop World Atlanta. Photoshop World, September 3rd through the 5th. Make sure you check it out. For my upcoming trip, it's small and lightweight, a big trade-off. We'll see how it works for me. I tell people all the time, carry a tabletop tripod.
Yeah.
Carry it all the time. Because what happens is you will get to a spot where somebody will turn around and they will confiscate your regular tripod, and you will pull it out of your inside pocket like, sucker, here you go, look at this tripod. It will happen.
Yeah.
It will save the day. Invest in a tabletop tripod.
RC's used an Apple before.
Yes, I did use an Apple.
We got to blow through these because we still have a video to show at the end of this thing.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, right.
All right, let's see. Thinking of buying the 105. This is from Astrid. Thinking of buying the 105 millimeter or the 135 f2 for the Nikon D7000. Planning to use it for portraits. Which one is better choice? Buy the 70-200. Don't buy either one of those. Let's see here. What do you guys think about color checker for shoot? What do you use a color checker when shooting people, when photographing people? Should the white balance be perfect, or is it more a creative thing?
I think white balance should be. If you're shooting people, I don't necessarily think that you need a color checker per se. You do need a gray card.
Correct.
A gray card would be nice. Custom white balance tool, if you have, that's really good. Color checkers usually when you're trying to be able to do accurate colors for things like products.
Yeah. So and I think color checkers are, the way I always tell people is color checkers. Like if I shoot everything with the color checker and I share my photo on Facebook, when RC looks at on his computer with his monitor, his 4K monitor, big 4K monitor he's got, when he looks at his photo, so I might be calibrated, I might have all that stuff, I did the color checker, I did all this, and then he looks at it on his non-calibrated monitor. My mom looks at it, my sister looks at it, your sister looks at it, and they're not calibrated. They're not calibrated. All that calibration you did doesn't do anything. It looks good for you, and it looks good. You'll then have good, you'll be able to follow the process through for printing. Mm-hmm. But I always tell people it's kind of the color checkers I think are more for when you have a process with a group of people.
Yes.
Where I want to make sure my color matches your color, matches the printer that we're using, matches the designer. We all use those color checkers, and we all make sure that we're perfectly calibrated.
Yes.
So that's to me what
we got to take a break.
All right, we're taking a break, and we're going to come back and blow through more questions.
Blow through some more questions.
Holy crap.
Your gear episode, Harbor, here on The Grid. See you right back.
Hey, Corey, we're going to that new pizza place across the street after work. You in?
Yeah, I really wish I could, man. I'm under deadline with this book. I got to get it done.
You're a machine, Corey. You're a machine!
Well, you have no idea.
From the robotic compositing mind of Corey Barker, learn step-by-step Photoshop tricks, type effects, extracting, textures, Hollywood effects, and really badass 3D. Photoshop Down and Dirty Tricks for Designers, Volume 2. Your mind will be composited away.
story. So welcome back, everybody, on the grid. RC here with Matt Laskowski. Matt's like pouring through questions.
Dude, there's so many, and they're good questions. I want to get to them all.
But here's the thing, dude. We could just do a double show. We don't have to do this one. We can do it next one. We can do another show another time.
Okay.
And we'll tell people to submit even more questions, and we'll turn this into a series.
All right. Can I just blow through like 3 or 4?
Go ahead.
Okay. Let's see here. Thomas Fleming, does Canon offer voice memo feature that Dave Black points out on the Nikon in his high school photography class?
Don't think so.
See, I think they do. Well, on the one, it depends what camera you're talking about. But you know what the best way, Thomas? Just Google it. Type in the camera name you're curious about and type in voice memo feature, and I bet you'll find it. Let's see here. Should you take your expensive tripod to the beach for shooting seascapes? Yes. Take your expensive tripod everywhere with you. That's why you paid for it. It'll do just fine. How about I want to buy a compact point and shoot. iPhone doesn't always cut it. Don't want to always carry a DSLR. Thinking about picking up a Sony RX100. Is it worth it? You know what? Those Sony RX100s are awesome. They're great cameras. I've shot with one before. I've heard great things about them. Here's what the only thing that I would say to you. So if you said this 6 months ago, I'd say absolutely, just grab one. So it's almost September, right? When's Photokina?
Photokina is in September. Isn't it? It's early September.
So Photokina is in September. There's always big announcements. You know, companies always release new stuff like around because Photokina is such a big event. So I might just so that you don't buy it today and like in 2 weeks you're kicking yourself. I'd probably just wait a few weeks to see if anything comes out there.
Here, look.
But yeah, those are great cameras.
Should you take your tripod everywhere? Yes.
That's water. There's a submersion, right?
Look, right up to the neck. Look at that. Right inside the ball head. I'm like, and I just grabbed it and just opened it all up, threw all the pieces on the table, threw all the water out, and I'm like, it'll dry off. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, they're meant, guys. They're meant for that stuff. That's what they're built for. So all right, you had a story. What?
Oh no, I was telling the story about the tabletop tripod. So I was in New York. We're hanging out. We're gonna do a party at Adobe. So we're walking into this one thing, and I'm walking with my tripod, and I'm like, The guy in New York at the door turns around and goes, "Tripod, give me." I mean, not like, excuse me, you have a tripod, but like, tripod, give me. And I'm like, what? Oh, you want this tripod? Okay, here you go. And he grabs it, and he's just like, you'll get it when you come back down. And I'm like, oh, all right, I see how it is. So I turn around, and we go up to the roof of the party, and there's this gorgeous view of New York, and it has a whole bunch of suicide glass on the end. So it's just basically just big sheets of glass, frosted glass, and then there's a gap, and then there's a frosted glass, and then there's a gap. And basically, they didn't want people using tripods over the glass to be able to take pictures. That's all I can think of. They were just being tools about it. And in between the two panes,
by the way, I got
just
a friend
tiny
now.
glass. Do you?
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
2 years too late.
So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, they don't want to let me do this. So I go over to the glass, and I'm like, oh, this little gap here, and I pull out the tabletop tripod, and I'm like, sucker, and I grab the leg, and I jam it in between the two panes of glass. I screw it onto the camera, whoop, pull it up, take my shots, and then turn around, and this is the shot that I took.
I remember
coming out of it. So that was on the other side of that, and that would have never happened had I not carried a tabletop tripod.
And I had my camera, but no tabletop tripod, so I don't even have a photo of it. All right, I want to ask you about one thing. I want to answer Terry Sizek's question. She's got a really long question, but I think her question is probably one that a lot of people have. She's basically got like a Nikon D7100, and she's got all these Nikon lenses, and she's asking if she should go with a mirrorless camera. So basically what I'd say is you're invested in Nikon, you're invested in all these lenses. If you go for a mirrorless system, you're gonna have to reinvest in all that stuff, so I wouldn't. I don't think there's a reason to make that jump at this point when you're already so invested in all those things.
I agree.
If you're just getting into it, it could be a different story. A lot of people asking about Synology and backup. Do I just buy a huge backup drive? Do I use Synology? What? I know you're kind of the expert on that.
Yeah, you know what? Synology is one of a series of different kind of backup systems that you have. Basically, they're what are called NASs, which are network attached storage devices. It's not like a big box of drives where you have a box and it has a series of drives or one drive and then you connect to it. This is something that is attached to your network. So you put it together, and what you're really doing here is you're centralizing all of the stuff in one spot in the house to get access to it. If you're at home and you connect to the box, great, that's wonderful. You can do that, just get a box. If you want that stuff to connect remotely, that's when you need a network attached storage.
Okay.
That's where I think Synology kicks the butt out of everybody that's there. So inside of here, if I wanted to connect to any kind of section, now I got to remember my password because now I think I changed it right before I came over here. But if I wanted to be able to connect to this, what would happen is I would just log into my specific URL, and I don't necessarily want to show it either. I'll connect to while you're answering a question, but I can log in from home. I can log in from wherever I'm at, access whatever it is that I want on a GUI. I can access it off my phone, send files from my phone to myself. I have those connections.
There it is.
Man, does she not know at this point?
It's almost comical at this point.
So you want to be able to access it everywhere? That's what you do. You want to be able to download apps to it? That's what you do. So
cool.
Synology has a different set of problems. If you guys want, tweet me at @RC. I'll tell you which one I think you should invest in. Go ahead. Next
you
question.
know what? We got a video that you did with Adobe, so we got to play that.
Right.
Too.
I do want to play that.
All right. So, RC, what table tripod would you recommend?
You know what? Me Photo's got a couple of good tripods there. The ones.
Really Right Stuff has one too.
Really Right Stuff has one as well. Both of those I think are really good. You know, the one thing that I won't get is I won't get a GorillaPod. They tend, over time, they tend to do that, and you want something nice and rigid and stiff. You want it to be able to just hold it. So, I'm just sorry.
All right.
On that note, listen, this is what we did. So a couple of days ago, in response to you guys talking a little bit about video in Photoshop, there was an overwhelming response with how to process video in Photoshop. And we had Brian Hughes here come to talk to us a little bit about that.
Who's one of the managers at Adobe.
Right, he's a principal product manager for Adobe, and he was talking about video in Photoshop, and he feels the same way that I do. But I wanted to make sure that you guys understood that you guys watching it inspired this and inspired us to be able to go to them. And I wanted you to see just how candid we can be with talking with Adobe about this stuff. And it was kind of basically what the heck is going on, Adobe? Why aren't you guys talking about this? I thought it was an interesting conversation, and we wanted to share it with you guys. So take a look at this conversation here. Welcome back, everybody, to The Grid. I am RC, and I am joined by Principal Product Manager Brian Hughes of Adobe. Brian, what's going on, man?
Good to see you.
Yeah, man, it's always good to see you. It's always good to see you. Listen, so this is what happened. Right, we were sitting there and we had an episode of The Grid not too long ago, and we were talking about Photoshop and video. Now, it's something that we've taken for granted for a couple of versions, but Scott and I sat around and we were talking about it, and we were like, more people need to know about this.
Yeah.
More people need to know about this kind of stuff. And we did the Grid episode for the video thing, and it was just unprecedented.
Yeah.
A lot of people were talking about video in Photoshop. Now, I'm used to it. I have a seminar tour that goes out to 50 cities, right? And every time that we do the seminar, we get to the section in video, and I've literally, it was like a 20-minute thing, and it went to 30 minutes, then it went to 40 minutes, then it went to 45 minutes, because every time that we would do it, people would be like, more.
Yeah.
We want more, we want to be able to see it. The response was great. You guys were really, really cool, and a lot of minds were blown with most of that stuff, but it left us in a position where we're like, what the heck's going on? Why doesn't Adobe talk about it? And the moment that we do that, that's when Adobe shows up. It's like, poof, you guys just appeared. And I wanted to put the question to you because, frankly, and we speak candidly about this kind of stuff all the time. The relationship we have is great. I think that Adobe's doing a lot of great things, but I really think that Adobe's letting people down here. You know, I think that there's a lot of users that are out there that are not going to go into Premiere. They're just not going to do it.
No.
And there's a lot of room in there for people to become Premiere users or become video editors. What's going on? Why don't you guys talk about it? Why don't you work with it? What is the big, why is it so hidden? You know, give us a little bit of a background.
Right, yeah, so let's roll back a little bit. So video in Photoshop, which to a lot of people, it's controversial. People tend to look at how they use Photoshop as the way Photoshop ought to be.
Right.
Photoshop's a painting app. Photoshop's a text layout app.
Right.
Photoshop's a restoration tool. It's a retouching tool. It's a photo tool. Everyone has a different idea of what Photoshop is, but a lot of people felt like Photoshop wasn't about video. But back in CS3, when we first turned on the extended feature, we put in some video support. Now, fast forward to just after CS5, which was an amazing release. And I was really heavily involved in JDI and reaching out to folks. And I said, let's really talk to users and let's talk to photographers and let's understand what their pain points are. And we kept bumping into the same pain point, which was people this is all around the time of the 5D Mark II and whatnot. And they had these cameras that were generating video. And today, you can't buy a phone or a point and shoot or a DSLR that doesn't support video. So we saw video coming out, and yet all of it, and by all of it, I mean like 98% of it when we went and did this research, was just sitting on the hard drive. Nobody was doing anything with it. And when I talked to people, they would say, I don't want to learn another app, or video editing is too tough. I heard that all. I don't want to learn Final Cut. I plenty of love for our products, but people would say Premiere is too tough. Photoshop, if Photoshop looks like a cockpit of a jet, then Premiere looks like the cockpit of the space shuttle.
Well, here's one thing. Let me stop you for 1 second, and I just want to be able to show you kind of just 4 screenshots that we'll talk about this kind of stuff. This is the first screenshot that you'll see when you open up Premiere, and I always tell everybody in a seminar, this is the experience of every Premiere. So guys, on the Premiere team at Adobe, if you think that you're designing something that is going to help the masses, let me just explain to you what it really looks like for thousands of people out there. Step number 1, you start Premiere. Oh, it looks the same. It's PR instead of PS. It's a different of 1 letter, not a problem. Step number 2, you get to this one screen that says Create Project. At this point, people are freaking out. They're looking at the screen, they're like, Create Project, I don't know, click. Now you bring them to a 3rd screen that says Mercury Playback Time Code something something, and you're like, dear God, I don't know if the next button that I'm gonna press is going to do that. Then you click next, and then if that window wasn't bad, now you have 15 of them that appear. The next step that happens is quit, Premiere sucks. That is a big problem. And people will do that, and you're losing people right before you start.
So we can agree. Premiere, maybe a little intimidating to a new video user.
That said, I use Premiere. Our video editors use Premiere. Everybody uses Premiere. It's an amazing app, but not for that person. So now what happens?
So what our research told us is we needed to make it easy. Making it easy was more important than making it powerful, which goes counter to everything we know with Photoshop. We always want to make it more powerful. It needed to be this really friendly timeline. And if you remember what video was like back in CS3 Extended, it was a lot of things, but it was not friendly.
No.
So we made it really friendly. And by we, I'm a product manager. I don't create anything at all. I send a lot of mail. I do a lot of talking. I try to motivate people with, whatever it might take.
Cupcakes.
Bribes, alcohol, whatever gets the job done. But there is one particular engineer. In most cases with features, I can't call out one engineer. Alan Erickson.
That's the guy.
He did this. He's the guy.
I'm going to send him a pizza.
Well, you're probably going to send him a bunch of feature requests. Something tells me we're not quite done with what you want from it. So Alan, Pizza Man, he listened to all this stuff, and he put in something that wasn't just easy to use, but it pretty much supported almost everything you can do in Photoshop. In other words, filters, sure. Lens correction, yeah, no problem. All this great stuff. The biggest problem, and I totally stand behind what we delivered in CS6, and in fact, it got so much better in CC when we turned on Camera Raw as a filter.
Oh my God.
Because you can pass video through Camera Raw, which is just insane.
I'll tell you 2 things to be able to bring back with you. One, when you guys showed CS6, when you brought it CS6 here and you talked about the video, you guys had a little small demo.
Right.
I saw it was like a little skateboard demo, I remember.
Yep.
I was like, I gotta go. I kind of want to I don't even want to be part of this conversation because it sucks so bad on CS5 and prior, CS3 and all that stuff. I went from thinking that it was horrible, and I tell this at the seminar tours. I went from thinking that this was the worst possible thing to standing on my chair clapping about it. And I was like, this finally takes it to a point where everybody that's out there that has a DSLR camera can now learn to do it.
I am with you.
And I thought it was phenomenal. And secondly, you made it even better with the Camera Raw. You made it better with most of that processing. I can't tell you how many times we see video editors in the audience. And I'm like, hey, how many of you guys are video editors? Cool, raise your hand. Now take your hand and sit on it because this isn't for you. But they'll come back and be like, can I be honest with you? Editing color and editing exposure, it's actually easier in Photoshop than it is in Premiere.
I've heard that. I've heard
They're like,
that.
it's actually pretty good. And it's like, there's an opportunity there.
Well, and I want to be clear, there are a lot of things that Photoshop can't do with video. There are a lot of things it can't do with video, and Premiere exists for so many reasons, and you can make a feature film with Premiere. The thing is, the person with the iPhone, the person with the point and shoot, the person with the GoPro, the person with the DSLR, I don't think they want to make feature films.
Ooh.
Right? I don't think that they're, maybe, and I'm sure someone will do it. You know, if you can do the cover of the New York Times with a paint app on the iPhone, you probably could make a feature film using Photoshop. It's a great challenge for one of you. But as far as the needs of the people who are buying these cameras, they need something that's easy and familiar. And they're already in Photoshop. So that was the idea.
And you know what? And you guys executed that idea very, very well. But I want to take it one step further for that. I think that there's tons of people out there that are doing this kind of video stuff, and there's a lot that you can do. I've dedicated a lot of my recent time in exploring the world of video and looking most of that stuff. But I actually will put it in a position where I'll put it a little differently. I think that there's a lot of people that are doing video that want to get better, that want to maybe not produce a feature film, but maybe do a short. Or that have this idea to be able to do it. And I think that Photoshop could serve as a gateway drug. I really do think that it could sit at the very, very beginning and go, guys, it's this easy. You can work this one thing. And Premiere, guys, if you guys are watching on the Premiere team, this will not take away. This will only augment. It will create more Premiere users, because what will happen is you don't want more than what it has. There's a couple things. There is a couple things.
I know they're sitting over there somewhere.
There's a couple things that are in here that I would want to have, but you don't need a lot. And that's what I tell people on the seminar. I'm like, you know what? If you want more transitions than the 5 or 6 transitions that go to Premiere. If you want to be able to do this and keying and all of this kind of stuff, go to Premiere. What happens is when people start, you just want it to be easy. Let me create something. Let it be good. Let me be excited about what I do. And you guys hit that. You could not have gone more on the bullseye with that. But what happens now is when somebody goes, well, what do I do with multiple cameras? What do I do with this? You develop a need. And that need, when people see that need and they go, how could I ... Now they have a reason to open up Premiere. And when they have that reason, now they're going to go, oh, okay, I'm going to go take a look at Premiere now. Because now I know I hit the ceiling. It's totally fine. You move past it and you get into Premiere. But for everybody else, it serves, and it serves well. But we need to do a better job of telling people.
I totally agree. So there's absolutely an awareness problem, right? You say Photoshop and video, and for people like us, we get it, and we're like, yeah, Photoshop and video, check it out. It's incredible. A lot of people have a preconceived notion. I mean, as you admitted a second ago, back when I came out and showed it to you in CS6, you had a preconceived notion of what that was going to mean when I said Photoshop and video. So you need to first get past that, and then you need to try it out. But yeah, we need to drive awareness about it. I think it's, as a photographer, as someone who's been on the Photoshop team for 15 years, I think it's the coolest feature to come into Photoshop in the last couple of versions, and I think it got way better in CC. The fact that you can pass video, I'm just going to say it again because it's crazy. The fact that you can pass video through Camera Raw, it's like having Lightroom for video. I mean, it really is like that. It's just crazy. You can take presets, you can add vignettes, you can denoise, you can do reverse clarity, you can do all this crazy stuff to video. And I think that's incredible. So yeah, we need to pass the word on. I've written about it a lot. I've done tutorials. It hasn't been the leading story in our marketing because we have another video product and because Photoshop solves a lot of problems. But I couldn't agree with you more.
You have a bridge. You have a bridge. You have a bridge to be able to get in between the two.
And I agree with you as well that I think it's great for our video products because we're going to attract this many more people that obviously have video and aren't doing anything with it. And of those people, as we know with Photoshop, some of them are going to outgrow what we deliver in Photoshop, and they're going to want to go further, and
that's where it is. That's where it's at. But anyway, I appreciate you spending the time and talking to me about it because it was one of those things that obviously have feature requests, obviously want to be able to do that. But I know that we can speak candidly about it, and I hope that you can take that message on. You can take that message on to people and let them know that there's a large group of people that are not doing anything with their footage and are looking for a solution. And you guys could be that solution.
You know what just occurred to me, and it's the only time this has ever happened. You guys always have feedback for me. You always have something that you want to see change or improve. This is the only time that I can remember you coming to me with a marketing problem. Right? You have an awareness problem. You guys have an awareness problem, which is also kind of crazy because you're you guys broadcast like nobody's business. I think I could solve this one. I think I could help. The product manager who doesn't know how to do anything, I know how to make some noise. I know how to get up on the mountain and shout.
Go forth and make some noise, because you know what? There's a lot of people that are looking for it, dude. I'm glad you stopped by, man.
You got it.
All right, thanks so much, man. Let's take it back over.
Hey, great video, man.
Yeah, things got a little real there.
You told it to him.
Yeah, you know what? Stuff. It was. That's the thing.
They listen. That's what's cool about it.
That's what makes it great. That's what makes it great.
All right, guys. So we got to give away our prizes really quick. If you want to win a prize, go to www.kelby1.com/contest.
And then from there, they can go ahead and
/webcasts/contest.
Oh, that's right.
Fill out your name. Big thing here is just make sure you pick the grid and then choose what prize you want: 3D for Photoshop or Canon EOS 6D from snapshots to great shots. So just leave that in the comments. A couple things just to let you know what's going on here. We've got some new Kelby training classes coming out here. So we've got Mia McCormick. So Mia came to us, 6 months ago. RC and I were sitting there, and Mia came and she's like, I have this idea for a series, and she's like, I want to take some of the women in photography that have really made an impact to the photography world, and I want to do a series of interviews with them. Mm-hmm. So we're like, do it. Have at it. So she went out there, and I got to hand it to her. She found the people. She set everything up.
Yes, she did.
And I mean, if you've never watched Mia interview somebody, she does such a good job, just because she's just really good at it. She's got such a way of pulling information out of it, and a lot of it comes because she does so much research ahead of time on the person that comes in. So when you watch the interviews, she's really able to get a lot of information from the people. So there's a whole series that she did: Stacy Purcell, Lou Freeman, Deanne Fitzmaurice, and then that's it. That's it for the first three.
Those are the first. Yes, they're releasing them three at a time, I think.
The teleprompter here, yeah. So those are the first three that are going to come out. And obviously, Mia is the hardest working person in the company here because she also has a class coming out on using a GoPro.
Last week they did that. Last week it released. It was a class that she did on how to be able to use a GoPro. So she's got the 3 interview series and the GoPro class.
Basically, if you go to the latest classes, they're all by Mia. So apparently, RC and I have been doing nothing. Dude, we gotta go do something now.
We gotta pick up the slack.
All right.
We're getting beat.
But no, congratulations to Mia. She did such a good job on those, and I think it's gonna be an awesome series for Kelby One. All right.
Hey, can I mention a couple of things?
Mention a couple of things.
All right, so there's a couple of different things. Eric Vallant, right, one of the instructors that teaches for us, he's teaching at Photoshop World. He also has something called the PostCon that he's doing. Make sure that you go to bit.ly/PSW PostCon. He's going out to Nelson. He's gonna be doing some sort of workshop out there. So if you're in Photoshop World and you're finished, right? We're at Photoshop World next week, so make sure that you go to the PhotoshopWorld.com site starting Wednesday, because we're going to be streaming live from there. So there's not going to be a grid. Just make sure you go to the PhotoshopWorld.com site, take a look at all of the events that we have on the kelby1.com/blog, and that'll keep you up to date on all the stuff that's happening with Photoshop World. After that, we have Eric Vallant, who's going to be doing a PostCon.
Cool.
Afterwards, so bit.ly/PSW PostCon. I don't know if my screen, let's go over here. Oops, sorry about that. bit.ly/PSW PostCon. Now, the thing that I'm really excited about that I wanted to talk about, the Monroe Gallery. The Monroe Gallery in Santa Fe, New Mexico, October 3rd through November 23rd. Now, if you don't know already, go to aboutrc.com just go to aboutrc.com. I have a blog about the Monroe Gallery. The Monroe Gallery is a black and white gallery in Santa Fe, New Mexico that deals with photojournalists and humanist photographers. So Life magazine. So it's got Eisenstadt, it's got McNally, it's got Carl Meidens, it's got Margaret Burke White, all of these other people in there. It's a legendary facility. And they're hosting Joe McNally's. He's got a solo show.
Oh, cool.
That starts October 3rd through November 23rd.
Awesome.
So he's got a solo show there, and I think it's amazing. I'm so happy for him. I'm going to go out. I want to go out and actually support. So if you're anywhere in that area, opening day is October 3rd. I'm probably going to fly in about a day early and probably do some pictures on there. But big congratulations to Joe. It's a very big thing to understand the Monroe Gallery, to understand what he's doing there.
Congrats to Joe.
Dude, it's huge. It's really big. So make sure that you take a look at this. Go to monroegallery.blogspot.com, and that'll give you all of the information from there. And we'll talk about it some more.
Cool. All right, as RC said before, we will be at Photoshop World next week. So if you come to tune into the grid, you will not see one because we won't be here. But if you are going to be at Photoshop World, come up and say hi. Please, we love it. It's you know, we always have people that say like, yeah, I saw you guys, but I didn't want to come up and say hi. I kind of felt weird. But seriously, guys, that's why we go to these things. Like, we love to get out of the office and go out there and talk to everybody. So if you see us, just come up and say just hi, watch the show, whatever it is. That's why we're there.
Yeah,
right?
and if you want to catch up on any of that stuff, I mentioned it. It's still a soft launch.
Oh
here.
yeah.
So I've been working with people here at Kelby One to be able to do this. This is just coming out now. So if you look kelby1.com/blog, this is our public blog for the Kelby One site. So right now, there's going to be a bunch of different articles. There's going to be different things that you can take a look at here. This is where you can follow a lot of the action at Photoshop World. So if you want to just kind of go there, go to this blog, kelby1.com/blog. Also go to the photoshopworld.com website to keep up with all of that information.
Cool. All right, I think that's it.
That's it.
All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you back here in a couple weeks. Live on the grid. Take care.
Bye-bye.